Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Breaking Through Walls, a journey into understanding your communication barriers. I'm Mike and this is Carol, and we've been married over 27 years and we've been helping couples for over 23 years. And we're glad to be here today to do this session. You're going to get so much out of this session. I want you to get ready for what's about to be imparted unto you. So today we're diving into something each of us face in our relationships, and those are those hidden barriers that keep us from truly connecting. Have you ever wondered why sometimes that it's hard to connect? Keep us from truly connecting. So we'll explore today why communication often breaks down. And we'll begin to identify the subtle, just those subtle little walls we build inside ourselves that keep us disconnected. And we'll begin to discover today a powerful tool to help us to move beyond those barriers, to move beyond that stagnation and understand our why.
That's good. That is really good. So we all know what it feels like to talk but not be heard.
Yes.
Have a conversation,
Yes.
You're talking to one another, and you feel as though you are not being heard. We all know what that feels like. Or to listen and not really understand.
Yeah.
Like you think you're understanding what you are hearing.
I can hear you, but am I comprehending?
But it is not clicking. This isn't about pointing fingers because we don't believe in pointing fingers. It's about recognizing that communication isn't just about what we say.
Yes.
It's not just about what we say. It also that we are carrying it. It's about what we're carrying beneath the words. Because every word that we give out, there's something else beneath the word. And that's what we have to look at. These are unspoken experiences that shape how we relate to the people closest to us. That's what it's about. So we're going to go deep in this. In our short time, we're so glad to have you here with us as we open up more about communication and the barriers and how they affect us in our relationships.
Yes.
So let's get your pen and paper. Let's jump in because we're going to drop some nuggets. This is going to be a great experience and dropping nuggets for you because this is what we do. It's like having a session with Mike and Carol.
Yes.
And we're going to do a lot of downloads right here.
So you have to be ready for this. So let's just be real, because the walls have been barriers and we want to dismantle those barriers and go beyond that. And maybe it's been the fear of judgment that has been one of the things that's been, your wall or your barrier. Maybe it's just that trust where you just don't trust easily.
Right. I like that, the fear of judgment, because a lot of times people are afraid to open up because they're afraid of what the other person's going to say.
Well, that is so true. And then how about trust? Trust, a lot of times, we come with trust issues and we come into the relationship with trust issues. And we don't realize how huge those walls can be.
And we don't discuss it.
We don't discuss it because maybe we're ashamed to discuss it. Maybe we're embarrassed by how it has, caused us so much dysfunction in our relationship. And maybe it's even been downloaded earlier in our life and we don't know how to get beyond that point.
That's good. So these barriers become blockers.
Yes.
So these are barriers that we are holding within ourselves, but they have become blockers to keep this communication from flowing the way it should. And they're little saboteurs that we carry.
Yeah.
All of us have these little things that we do self-sabotage, and these little things that we carry with us that they're hidden, but they sure know when to show up, and they can sabotage how we communicate with one another. They just show up and they interfere in honest conversations. They just show up at little nitpick things that constantly show up and they interfere with how we actually communicate. They show up as defensiveness.
Yes.
I know you understand that because it's easy, because these little saboteurs, it makes us, all of a sudden we become defensive. So little conversations, and they can be honest conversations, and then defensiveness shows up, and they show up if someone seems as though they're questioning our motives.
Yeah.
But why did you put the toothpaste on the counter.
Automatically, walls of defense come up.
Automatically. They also show up as withdrawal. When someone hits a topic that hits kind of close to home, then you kind of withdraw from the conversation. You withdraw from, just you guys could have been in a good space, but all of a sudden this little topic, it shows up, and then all of a sudden I'm withdrawing, and then he doesn't understand. Well, why did you all of a sudden shut down? These are the little saboteurs that show up. They can show up as anger when we feel misunderstood. We see couples, and we've been doing this for over 23 years. And a lot of times, one of the very things that I, especially to help husbands with, if understanding that however she may show up, that's not really what's going on. This is a wall that she has just thrown up, but there's a reason behind the wall. So don't kind of think that she just always like to argue, she just always like to fight. There is something else going on. And this is a barrier which becomes a blocker that shows up. And we have to kind of look beyond that. So don't look at if the person shows up and they always seem they angry, look beyond the anger.
Yes.
Because there is something else underlying, underneath, that they have not discussed.
I think it should be our responsibility in a relationship to look beyond what we see in the moment.
Yes.
And, and go back to maybe there's a reason why this person is feeling this way or acting this way. And sometimes we just don't dig into the reason why.
That's true.
And it is so important. So we have to understand these barriers just don't appear, overnight. A lot of them have been there. They were formed over time. Think about that. It took some of us time to get to the place where we just kind of hold on to those barriers and keep ourselves distant from our partner and hold on and go into isolation with, well, this is my barrier. And I'm just going to hold on to it, when in fact it's not serving you.
It's not serving
you. It is not serving you, nor is it serving your partner. And this is why we are so adamant today about why we need to dig into this subject, because we've seen over and over and over again for over 23 years, couples deal with the same things.
Same thing.
So, we have to dig into this.
Yes. So let's have a real talk moment right here. So I want you to think about the recent disagreement that you and your partner had. Just think about what was the last disagreement that you guys may have had. Was it really about doing the dishes? Was it really about the remote? Was it really about that? Because usually that's the thing that we start. That's the small thing we start, but it's something else that's going on. See, often it looks like a small conflict, but on the surface, it's starting to point towards something underneath. But a lot of times we get focused on the surface, and it's really what's going on underneath that's really important. So it's not about, whether or not you did the dishes or whether or not you didn't. It's like, was it that I felt unappreciated?
Yeah.
If it's not about the dishes, it's what about what's going on underneath. Did I feel appreciated, or do I feel appreciated? Do I feel like I'm always the one doing things? There is something else going on. So it's never the thing that shows up. Look beyond that to find out what's really going on beneath. Because what we don't realize is that there are silent fears that show up, but they're not going to show up as a fear. They may show up as defensiveness.
Yeah.
So I throw up my walls because I have these silent fears. So what's really going on?
What's really going on is the key. I want you to write one word on your paper, because that one word right now is why.
Why?
And that is such a big word, because why is going to get us back to the real story.
That's it.
Of what's really going on.
The truth is in the why.
It's in the why. And so many times we get caught on the surface conversations and the surface anger and the surface emotional uprising, but we miss the fact underneath of it all, there's always a why. There is always something going on down, and the power of that why has been causing people to sabotage their own relationships because they have not understood. I need to get to your why.
I need to get to
before I can truly understand you or have you understand me, because in a relationship, that's what it's all about. I want to understand you and be understood by you, and you want to understand me, be understood by me. But how can we understand each other if we stay on the surface? and never go
it.
deeper and get into the real
That
story,
is
which
right.
is the why.
Because sometimes that thing shows up and it's really so much insecurity laying underneath. But I'm not going to tell you I'm insecure.
Yeah.
I'm going to show up as argumentative. I'm going to show up as I just don't want to do it, or I'm going to show up differently. But it's up to us to really understand what's really going on, because there's something else underneath.
Yeah.
And it's what's underneath that is actually what you can solve the issues in the marriage.
So it's almost like when we get to the why, it's almost like turning a light on inside of a dark room. Maybe it's been dark in your room. Maybe it's been dark in his room, her room for a long time. But the only way you turn the light on is to get to the why. That's the only way.
To the why.
Get to the why.
We got to get beyond what's on the top.
Yes.
It's like, and if you're a cook or you like to cook, and a lot of times if you're stewing or you're boiling something, we back in my day, we call it skimming the soup. So you let all of the heat causes the stuff that's come to the surface, and usually the stuff at the surface is what we get rid of, because what you really want is the essence underneath.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we are focused on the little small things, and we need to get beyond that and see what's really underneath, because when you find out what's underneath, healing can take place.
Yes. And I like that. I like what you used that analogy about the soup. Also, getting to that why is like, we see, the larger things. Say if you walk into a room and you see the middle of the room, but getting to the why is like getting into the corners of the room and actually seeing every little detail.
I got to see everything.
We got to see everything. And we miss those nuances, those small things that really become huge things. But that's because we have never gotten to the why. We got to
get beneath what's going on, because we get defensive.
That's right. We get defensive. Why do I get defensive? Why am I defensive? I need to look at myself. I need to do self-evaluations. I need to be able to do an investigation on myself and find out, why am I having these moments? Why am I getting to the place where, I am just so defensive? Obviously, I'm offended by something, and it causes my walls of defense to come up. And I need to find out my why.
See, when we start finding out our why, we're no longer just reacting. I am big on this while I'm teaching and coaching, especially my wives, because I spend more time with the wives. A lot of times we are reacting, and we are reacting out of something else that's been triggered. So we're either responding or we are reacting. So when you start discovering your why, you have to understand it's no longer just reacting. Now I'm investigating.
Yes.
I'm investigating. First of all, I always say, look at myself first. I'm investigating. First of all, why do I keep going off? Why do these things keep getting on my nerves? I know it's getting on his nerves, but why are these things acting up? Because that's the best and the foremost thing is in discovering is, first of all, I want to discover what's going on in me.
Yeah.
Then it's easier for me to share it with you, because he's looking at me side-eye. In our first year of marriage, oh my God, I remember that. It's been a long time, but I remember just that first year of self-discovery when I had to figure out, why was I acting crazy? What was my crazy? And self-discovery was first discovering my why.
Yes.
Why were these things showing up? Because I love this man with everything. Now, we've been married happily. Not everybody can say happily married, 27 years. And I can honestly say that I have never left the bed. He's never left the bed.
Right.
And that doesn't mean we don't have conflict.
That's right.
It doesn't mean we don't have hiccups. It means that we've learned to understand our whys.
And I won't be leaving the bed.
No, we don't do that.
Yes.
And we understand our whys, because everything inside of us is like cause and effect. So that is important.
I'm glad you expounded on that like that, because, men, I look at myself, and a lot of times, I do some of the things, and I know some of you men can relate to it. And you have to ask yourself, and I want you to go through an exercise that you actually teach your women, and I want the men to apply that to themselves. I want you to look at yourself when you do something, and I want you to do an assessment. I want you to go back 5 times with your why. And I want you to be able to say, if I said this to her and it hurt her, why did I say it? Then when you get that why, I want you to go back to another why. Well, why did I do that? And then I want you to go back to I want you to go back 5 times in your whys and ask yourself those questions, because having a self-awareness of why you did something is so very important. That's the only way to unlock the key to keep from doing it again. And if I don't know my why, then she won't know my why. And then I'll struggle to continue to keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's not what I want to do.
So it's like we have to become explorers for our own life, our own emotional landscape. So I have to explore me.
Yes.
Why do I feel this way about certain things? Where did it come from? So you have to start with yourself. It's never good to start. I ain't got no business looking for his why. I need to start looking for my why. If we keep having these same types of conflicts and we keep having these same areas of disagreement, I have to start doing some exploring. And that's starting with myself. This is not comfortable. I'm going to tell you, for my own self, like my first year of marriage, this was not a comfortable place.
Yes.
Because I had to look at all my crazy. And then I had to figure out where all my crazy come from, and figure out where that crazy come from. That 5 things, like Mike says, 5 steps back, my why. But once I was able to identify my why, I was able to have a conversation with him. And that's because I explored my own. Because, you know, if he came and started telling me my why, I'm going to get defensive.
Yeah.
What? Because then I'm going to feel like you judging me. This is why it's so important that we our own self, exploring our own emotional landscape. So sometimes the why points hurt.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
When I discovered my why, it hurt. I cried and cried because I was like, oh my God, I'm looking over here, but I didn't realize that I had to start here. So that's a word for all of us. Sometimes you got to stop looking at your partner, trying to figure out why they do. Start looking at yourself and why did you do? It is so good. Once we get there, it makes it so much better.
Right. So sometimes, and I like the way you put that, because we can easily fall into the trap of blaming the other person.
It's easy.
And it's easy to take the weight off yourself and just put it on the other person. But it's not about blaming. You know, it's not about blaming, because all blaming does, it just identifies that I have barriers up that I'm not willing to deal with and be vulnerable to even accept some of my wrong and accept the fact that I could be wrong and I may not be right. And, you know, this is a problem.
Stop trying to be right.
That's right. That's right. So it's about saying, you know what? I get it now.
I get it.
It's about finally reaching that point of acknowledging that, you know what? I could possibly be wrong. Maybe I've been wrong a lot of times, but I get it now. I see why I respond this way. You really want to get to that point where you can say, I see me. I see why I do. Not about your partner, but I see why I do. I see why I respond the way I do. I see, and I see why I use certain tones and certain words. I see why my days sometimes are off. I see how I respond in my emotional realm. And there's a deeper reason. And I want to get to the point where I can say, I see now for myself.
That's so good, because a lot of times, like always, we see couples all the time, and like every week, every day, this is what we do. And a lot of times when they first have their first session with us, their initial session, it's always what he didn't do and what she didn't do. He didn't do what she didn't do. It's always there. And so we are so trained to like go beyond what they're telling us to hear what's really going on, because they're the barriers, they're the blockers, they're those silent little killers that's destroying relationships, because no one wants to take the time to look at themselves. And this is when we talk about mapping. So we're going to talk about this. This is something that is so important, because when we're in session, we always map. We are mapping because in order to get to another place or to discover, you got to map. You know, now I know you're young folk, don't know about no mapping. But back in our days, we didn't always have a navigation system. And maybe that's the problem. Because in navigation, it's telling you, go here, go here, go here. But back in our day, we had something that was called a map. It was a big old, look, I remember the maps. You can go into the convenience store on the highway, and that would be so huge. I remember the beginning when we was traveling, you know, it's telling our age and longevity. But I remember he would like, get the map, baby. and like, where are we now? And I be trying to think, because see, geography wasn't my thing, because I was going to be first to admit, in school I did not pay attention to geography. So I remember him riding down the street, and he'd be like, baby, what road? Well, what's, and I'd be turning the thing up and looking, but we know that the map is going to give you direction, clear, precise direction to get from here to there. So think of that whole concept in your relationship, map. And imagine having a map of what's really going on beneath the surface. This is what mapping, this is the power of mapping. What's really going on beneath the surface? Because on the whole scheme of a map, it may show you, okay, Washington, D.C. is right here, right? But I'm all the way up here in New Jersey. I got to travel all of these. I'm going to go through under some bridges, some overpass, and there's going to be some crossing of roads and things like that. So when you look at circling the map, I'm in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, and I got to get to D.C. You're looking at the circles. And then, but what's going on is how do we get to where we need to be? So let's talk about that map. It is so important. So you have to be able to navigate the unfamiliar territories. And the map, back in the day, the map, sometimes you couldn't see if there was a roadblock. You couldn't tell if there was construction, right? Because all you got.
It wasn't in real time.
It wasn't in real time. See, we spoiled now because now our navigations will tell you, you're going to have to do a detour. But back then, you had to figure this thing out. So we're taking mapping and talking about mapping in our relationships, mapping through our communication. And this is what is important, because the unfamiliar territory, it may not feel good, but we're going to map our way through this, because once you learn how to map your way through conversations, emotional distress, and all of the barriers, it makes it easier. Because why? Because the next time I go down that road, I already know what to look for.
That's right.
Oh, that's good.
M-A-P-P-I-N-G, mapping, write it down. Mapping, and I'm glad you said that, because as it relates to a relationship, it might involve identifying key areas where trust is solid or where it's shaky. It might, involve just actually pinpointing some of the topics and trigger areas that you may have. And it may involve just looking at certain behaviors and really fine tuning. This is what we talk about when we look at talking about mapping, and where do those deeper feelings lead me to? Where do they come from?
Key points that show up on your map.
Exactly. They're showing up on your map. The map we're talking about is inside your relationship, and how these things keep showing up, why they keep showing up, and how they take you from here to there, to here to there. So we're talking about relational mapping. What's going on in that relationship?
What's going on inside of you? That's so important, I think, because as I said earlier, we have been so used to, we got our phones, we got computers, and you can put things in and you can get a whole, scope of things of what you're looking for. But when you have to start mapping, you got to pay attention to the details.
That's true. And the details, it's all in the details, because when you just said that, I thought about sometimes in relationships, we get into messy arguments. We get into confusion. We get into things that we keep stumbling over. One of my sayings is, it's not an intelligent person that keeps tripping over the same rock twice. Okay. But in mapping, see, this is the important part about mapping. How do I avoid those same conversations, those same conflicts, those same arguments, those same fights? How do I avoid that frustration for myself and for my partner?
So what happens is mapping gives you a perspective. So think of it this way. It gives you a perspective. Instead of feeling lost when conflict arises, you'll have a sort of a compass. That's like, now it's not using your phone, but you got a compass. You're not using, what's that, Waze? You know how, like, when you're on the road, we got this thing called Waze, and then it'll tell us when things are coming up, and then you're prepared for it, right?
Accidents,
then you get prepared. But when you have to start now mapping, it's like this old saying that if I can teach you how to fish, or I can give you the fish. And so new ways was like, we're giving you this, but how about taking a step back and start taking some old-fashioned mapping and say, hey, instead of me just giving you the solution, let me help you figure out why. Because sometimes you're going to get through conflicts, and
Mhm.
you're going to need that map as a compass, and help you to understand why you feel threatened. It helps you to understand how to address it from the place where you are today, from this place. How do we move forward? This is what mapping does.
Yeah.
It gives you insight so that you don't go through series of frustrations.
Yeah. So every relationship is different, and you
Yeah.
know your relationship. So this is not about exactly telling you how to just fix everything right now, but it is about helping you to point out. It's about opening your eyes and being able to see a new way,
Mhm.
being able to see, a new tactic and a way to deal with things. So when you have a map, you can plot that route differently. You can
I
move
like
forward
that.
differently, and that's the whole
Yes.
purpose
That's
of
the
what you've been
whole
saying.
thing about the
How can
mapping.
I move forward from the place where I am?
Where I am right
I don't
now.
want to stay here if I'm trying to get there.
Mm-mm.
If I put an address in my GPS, I don't intend to keep sitting, say, in Chicago if I'm trying to get to Atlanta.
Right.
I need to know how to move. What is my
What's
map?
my
How am I going to
It's like a game of chess. I need to know my next move.
That's right. So in order to know my moves, I got to know my pitfalls. I got to
Mhm.
know the things that cause me to have anxiety.
Yes.
And I need to know, what's on the horizon, what's coming up. But that all comes with knowing my triggers, because triggers is an automatic emotional negative response
Yes.
to something that, has happened in your past. And how long are you going to keep allowing your past to have dominance over your future?
Oh, that's good right there.
If we don't map it out, we will not create a new plan, and we will
will
continue to do the
not.
same thing over and over
And over again. That is good. That is so good. So now we have to think about, how do we learn to map? How do we map? We do our triggers, our whys. All of these things are a part of mapping.
Yes.
And this is what we are really pushing and really teaching couples now, is how to map.
Yes.
Through, and being able to do it on your own. So awareness is a powerful tool.
Powerful.
Awareness.
Yes.
Just being self-aware is a powerful tool. It's like being able to lay out the map and say, like, okay, so where do I start? And you start with understanding your why and where you are. So because with awareness comes choices.
Yes, choices.
Because I can make a choice to do A or B. Or I can make a choice, like you said, I can stand still and do nothing. But if I stand still and do nothing, where would that lead me? How, the choice is, how do I respond?
Yes.
Am I going to respond? Am I going to speak up? Am I going to react? When we start reacting, I always teach this, reacting always takes you to a negative place. So you want to be in a place where you're responding. And you learn to respond because you learn how to map and what are the trigger points, what are the landmines, what's really going on. That's really, really what we want to do. So now here's our next step. We have created this digital interactive ebook.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's an interactive ebook. And listen, we're not selling you something. No. Just because you have registered and you have joined this workshop, it is a part of this.
Yes.
You get your digital ebook. It's interactive, so it's going to be very intuitive. It's going to really help you. And so today you're going to get like a glimpse of really what's going on. So we've created this interactive, and it's called Breaking Barriers. Yes. Breaking Barriers, which means mapping trust and building that lasting emotional connection. That's what it is. It is that. And so I'm going to pull up and I'm going to let you see what it really looks like. Waiting. Yes.
I'm so excited about this. We're excited because we know this is going to take couples beyond where they are.
That is right there. You are looking at, that is actually the ebook. It's an interactive ebook. Today you're going to get it if it hasn't entered your email yet, but it is Breaking the Barriers. So inside of this ebook, it is going to help you to learn how to overcome the barriers, to find out what's going on. This isn't just an ordinary PDF. Or it's not something you skim through. This is totally different. This is an experience. So this ebook is interactive and it's created to be an experience for you. It's like being in a session with Mike and Carol, and getting the information, but then now you have your homework. It's interactive. You have things that you have to do. And these are the very things that we've been teaching with a little bit more spin on some of them. But it's like this. We're going to give you the tools. This ebook is like none other. It is yours today. You don't have to do anything else. It's yours. It's interactive. It's an experience that encourages you to engage. It's going to encourage you to reflect and then to apply what you have learned. It's all about application. That's where wisdom comes in. Wisdom is now I can apply what I've learned to my situations. It will give you more specifics on how to create your own communication map. This is what it is. And so what you see there are actually 2 of the pages that are actually interactive. So this right here, this is our trust tree. This trust tree is interactively where you and your partner get to sit down and you can click on the leaves to, and all the instructions are in there. You click on the leaves so that you can allow your partner to know in which area, I feel like we're great, we're strong, which area we may be broken, which area may be weak, which area we need some water. So it's interactive, but it's conversation. It's teaching you how to conversate where we are. This is what's going on. And sometimes if we don't have something in front of us, like our map in front of us to help us to see where we are, it's going to be very hard. You don't even know where to start a conversation. Right. And then the other part, the other page is now that you have did your map and you figured out the areas that you're struggling or you need to work on. So then you see the footprints. Now, how do we get to making our leaves all green? What are the steps that I'm willing to take? What are the steps you're willing to take? And these are very interactive. You will be able to work through this. So this is a really, really good tool, and it helps you to discover the deeper truths of your communication. That's just 2 interactive pages. There's so many more. Throughout every chapter, there is an interactive assignment that you guys have to work on together. It's going to help you to forge a bond. It's going to help you to begin to see the areas that we need help, and most importantly, the chapters that help you discover your why. Oh, you will have interaction throughout this entire ebook. It's not just an ebook, it's an experience. It's like a session with Mike and Carol. Imagine being able to, on your time, be able to, your time, your way, to be able to have a session with us, and we're going to talk about our why. But we're helping you discover your why because we're giving you the map and giving you the instructions and giving you the wisdom, giving you the nuggets, dropping all of those things right there with you. And then we're giving you the opportunity. So instead of us sending you out of your session with the homework, you actually get to work on that very chapter together right then. It's very intuitive. It's a very great interactive. I think this is one of the best tools we've created to date.
It is. And I'm so excited about it, and I love it because, and I know she keeps saying interactive because it is. And, to somebody, they need to understand what that actually means. You can sit down with your partner together. You can take leaf by leaf or water pail, and you can move it, and you can say, I'm weak here, I'm broken here, I need help here. When we say interactive, this will blow your mind because we've never created anything like this where couples could just interact with each other and actually have us right here, but actually building it themselves, because that old saying is true. People only appreciate what they help to build. and you are building your future. You are building your relationship. You are mapping out the course of where you and your wife or your husband is going to go for the future. And this will be a powerful, life-changing tool for you.
You get to create your vision.
Yes.
Right there together. So everything is done digitally.
Yes.
So you get to do everything together, and you are mapping from writing, creating your contracts together, from doing your the mapping and talking about things, creating your vision. All of these things are done within this interactive ebook.
Yes, yes, yes. So we just want to take time to thank you, for joining us today. And remember, every couple will face challenges.
Yes.
Every couple will have its ups and downs, potholes, pitfalls. Every individual has reasons, behind their actions and their reactions. So, by looking bravely into yourself, we want you to look inwardly, and we want you to ask those thought-provoking questions of yourself. Get to your why. Understand what mapping is all about. Understand how the terrain and how it gets there, how you need to get from point A to point B.
Yes.
And how there may be obstacles in your life, but you cannot stop at a barrier. You can't stop at an obstacle. You can't let it hinder your progress. And there will be stages of growth, and there will be stages where you may not understand and need a deeper understanding.
Yes.
But you have to keep moving forward.
You have
to understand that your words have power.
Yes.
And you have to use them to build and break barriers. You have to use them to tear down walls. You have to be able to connect, so that you will not be divided. So we hope to continue, with you during this journey. But I'm telling you, this is a powerful tool that you can't afford to miss. So you got to keep the conversation going.
Keep it going. Listen, mapping will change the way you communicate.
Yes.
So if you're struggling or have been struggling with each other on, I don't know how to communicate. I don't know why she says what she says. I don't know why he does what he does. This interactive ebook will help you with discovering. This is important. And remember, no matter what situation you find yourself in, no matter how strong or how weak anything is, if you got the map and the right tools, you can dig yourself out of anything.
Yes.
Where you are today does not mean you stay there. It's like, let's create another path. Because sometimes the old road may start to crumble. It needs a lot of fixing. The bridge may need to be repaved. Something may be going on that you have to restructure the way you have been doing things. And that's okay. It's okay to restructure. So this is why part of the ebook actually takes you back to the past to understand your why.
Yes.
It is okay to restructure, because sometimes we can't keep doing things the same way. Doing it the same way, we get the same results, and neither one of us are happy.
No.
It's affecting our children. The power of knowing and understanding your why and mapping is, once we figure out the roadmap that works for us, because every couple is different. We say that when we start with a couple, every couple is different. Once we figure out the roadmap that works for us, we build on that. And then that's something that you can pass down to your children. And then they can pick up the reins and they build from that. But if we have no foundation that is actually structurally safe, where there's a win-win for us both, then we're going to struggle. Our fighting will be more intensified. And then sometimes you are so in love with the person, but because you've never learned how to communicate, divorce comes in, separation comes in, but you actually really love that person. So why don't you give your family an opportunity to create new road maps?
I love my person. And this is so powerful, and this is so true what she's saying, because too many times as couples in a relationship, we operate by sight, and we forget that it's bigger than just sight. We need to go beyond sight into vision. But how are we going to get there if we don't have the mapping process to get us there? We want to be able to move beyond what we see, what we do, which is sight. Sight says, I see what's in front of me. Vision says, I see the future. How do we get to the future if we don't have a mapped out plan to get there? And this, how do we get beyond the struggle? How do we get beyond the lack of communication and get into authentic, healthy, happy communication that feeds us both. We have to have a map.
I love that. Feeds us both. So however you've been communicating, this is the time to take a step back. Maybe you've been coming out and you've been showing up with so much defensiveness.
Yes.
Because the moment something triggers you, the moment something makes you feel uncomfortable, then you show up and you put your walls up, either your walls of defense or your withdrawal. And either way, there's going to cause a gap in communication between you. But how about thinking about, let's close these gaps.
Yes.
Let's create a marriage that's happy, is sustainable, there's joy, that we have more deposits than we have withdrawals. Creating a marriage like that can be done.
Yes.
Can be successful. But you got to make up your mind, this is what you want. You got to make up in your mind that however we've been doing it, maybe it hasn't worked.
That's right.
Trying something new can actually change the trajectory of where your relationship is today.
And maybe you are where you are today because you thought yourself to be there.
Yes.
But how about if you think yourself to be in a different place? You can create it.
You create the world you want to live.
That's right. We have what we create. You create the world in which you live. If you want to create something new, you can create that.
You can. It all starts. You need the tool. You need the tool. What person starts to build a house and they first of all don't have a map? Right. Or what did you call that? Architected that thing is a map or a blueprint. It doesn't have a blueprint to see where do we start.
Right.
No builder ever starts without a blueprint. But we get married and we don't have a blueprint. We don't have a map. We've never created. We never thought about it. We never thought about what are some of the saboteurs that live in my life, what lives in his life.
Yeah.
And how are we bringing them together? We've never taken the time to think about those. We've never been taught. And so then we get married and it's like, who is this person? We got like Frankenstein, Mr. and Mrs. Frankenstein. You don't know who you're going to get every morning.
Yeah.
And that's unfair. It's so unfair. But once I know who I am and what's going on inside of me and what my fears are, what my insecurities, once I be truthful with myself, I can then share that with him.
Yeah.
Then he understands me. It makes it a little bit easier to communicate. Doesn't mean that things are going to change just like that, but it gives a foundation. When I had to make a decision to look within my crazy, I call it my crazy. Yours may not be crazy, but mine was crazy.
Yeah.
When I took the time to look inside of my crazy, it hurt. It hurt so bad to look inside of myself. But then once I got over my hurt and I realized that, oh my God, he doesn't even really know me because I never showed him that.
Yeah.
Once I shared that with him, he had the chance to say yay or nay. A lot of times we get married and we don't give the other one the opportunity to make a decision on what they can handle and what they can't, what they're willing to learn and what they're willing not to. We just automatically assume now that you're married to me, that I can give you all of that, but that's not fair.
Yeah, and just in what you just said, our saboteurs don't show up until we get into conflict.
Yeah.
That now we're in conflict. Now you're finding out a part about me that I really don't want you to see, but I don't know what to deal with, how to deal with it.
Yes.
I don't know how to talk about it, but it shows up in conflict.
Yes. So a lot of times we're looking at the person side eye like they're crazy, but they really might be insecure.
Yeah.
And they don't know how. They may have learned to be assertive. And then you're looking at them because you're not an assertive person.
Yeah.
And they're showing up like this. And you're trying to figure out, how do I communicate with that person? This is why discovering, and this ebook will be everything and can be life-changing. If you take the time to really want to learn, take the time to really start mapping and having conversation with your spouse. You didn't get married to get divorced. You didn't connect and give up all these years with one another to lose one another. I want to grow old with you. I want my partner. This is my person. And this is who I want to wake up to every day. This is who I want to go on my little dates with and eat my ice cream, lay on the sofa, do nothing, walk across the beach, whatever. Yeah. If that's your person, then You have to make sure that you do everything possible to make sure that the structure of your relationship is sound.
That's right. What I love about this workshop is we didn't come to make withdrawals and take anything from you. We came to make deposits and deposit something into you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you begin to shift your thinking, your paradigm into this mapping that we're talking about, and you get into this, it will change the trajectory of your relationship.
Everything.
Yes.
You are in control. The power of your thought and then the actions that you take can make a huge difference. And this is what we wanted to do. Today, we wanted to make sure that we were able to pour words of wisdom and pour words into you. Like you said, we didn't come to sell you anything. We came to make sure that we were able to drop something to you and then give you a major tool that can change everything.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed this session with Mike and Carol. A session like this would have cost you a whole lot of money. But for your fee, just to get into this session today, you've got nuggets. We hope that these nuggets are life-changing. And this could be one of many series that we did. But we wanted to make sure that we gave you the tools that is needed to have a successful relationship. Longevity. That's what you want. Longevity.
Longevity.
With love.
That's right. I love you.
I love you. You guys, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
And if you need us, reach in. But we pray that the tools you receive today will be life-changing tools to change your tomorrow. Have a great day.